Meanwhile, the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Julius Malema, has urged Zimbabweans to go home and vote. Malema has further appealed to the governing ZANU-PF to desist from unleashing violence against its political opponents. We take a look at the logistics of it all with Dr. Vusi Sibanda, CEO of the Africa Diaspora Global Network. Thank you very much, Doc, for your time this afternoon. Speaking yesterday during an EFF event, Julius Malema said that Zimbabweans must go home and vote and stop blaming other people for their own misfortunes for which they have solutions. He's further offered to assist in terms of people approaching EFF offices so they can rent buses for people to go home and vote. Previously, what have we seen in terms of voting season in Zimbabwe and people leaving the diaspora to go back home and vote? How popular is that option?
Well, it has not been a very popular option, especially of late. But you will agree with me if you remember that in about 2000, it was 2000 in the 2005 election. It was very, very popular because people used to take even, some time off from work to go and vote because there was that belief that there was a different opposition party that appeared to be more efficient and that appeared to be more popular. But, after those elections, it appeared that, election results were always rigged and the result was never, in favor of the opposition, even if it appeared that they won. People, got fatigued because at the end of the day, not many people would just go to vote because they notice that it just doesn't make any change.
So there's a sense of apathy. Indeed.
The sense of apathy, grew. You'd agree. I mean, if you have looked at the trend that, we have seen, huge, amounts of voter apathy, for example, from 1990 in Zimbabwe, 95, to the extent that in about 95, only 26% of the registered voters actually voted. And then in 2000, the numbers grew and swelled, and 2005, 2007. But from there, again, the numbers started to drop again because it became very clear that the opposition did not have a solution, especially as far as protecting the vote is concerned. Because after the people have voted, the next step would be ensure that the integrity of the vote itself, the outcomes, are going to be protected and they are going to be kept, at least, legitimate, despite the fact that, the process might not have been ideal.
Mm. How sustainable is that, especially when you have leaders of parties who say that the people of Zimbabwe must stop blaming other people for their own misfortunes for which they have a solution, from staying away from the ballot? How sustainable is that really?
I think that statement, one of the issues that we must not take away from the leader of the EFF is that he has always been relatively supportive to the opposition, politics, I think, around the globe and maybe say in Africa and Zimbabwe and in particular, and particularly the problems that are associated, with the attacks that are meted on opposition, party members and leaders. But unfortunately, this statement is quite regrettable because the leader of the EFF is not appreciative of the fact that in 2018, 6 people were gunned down by soldiers using live ammunition in broad daylight, covered by so many, international, broadcasting houses. And we have not seen this amount of vociferous, speaking being directed to say we want, a proper outcome of that particular, inquiry that was done into that shooting. Because as long as people can go and vote, but the vote is not protected and the people are not protected, and then you come and say the solution lies with the people. The solution doesn't lie with the people, because today nobody can stand with the people of Zimbabwe who are supporting the opposition if they say they wanted to go on the streets and start demonstrating. We've seen people being arrested, even during the last food strike. People just get arrested arbitrarily and they're kept in prison for time on end without, even trial. So how then do you say that, the people are the ones that have got the solution in their hands?
You speak of an unprotected vote. Does this mean that you also have no faith in election observers in the country?
Definitely. There is no faith in the election, process in Zimbabwe. We are very aware that, elections have just become, a formality. It's a sham election. It's a formality just to make sure that, people believe that elections are taking place. But we all know that, we have seen, observer missions being prevented, and only those that are supportive of this idea of state sovereignty, where you are only supposed to go there and stand a mile away and not comment or not exactly is happening. And then after the fact, many years down the line, like what we've seen now, we're starting to see comments from the early 2000 election come and say, no, but they were not free and fair, or they were free and fair, but they were not credible. So the election process is just a sham process, and it's not going to produce any credible outcome.
Mr. Sibanda, who needs to do what then in order to find a sustainable solution? You've got a couple of weeks ago, the Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, upon the visit of Nelson Chamisa to South Africa, where he was actually calling for people who are in the diaspora, some who are here in South Africa, to go back home and vote. And he said, well, the people of Zimbabwe don't want Emerson Mnangagwa. They want Nelson Chamisa. South Africa previously adopted the position of silent or quiet diplomacy where Zimbabwe is concerned. Is it clear to you what the position of the present-day government is when it comes to Zimbabwe?
Well, the position of the South African government, I think it hasn't changed since 2000. It still remains quiet diplomacy. It still remains a process that engages for the sake of, PR stance and purposes, or what we can really, say, look alike. Because, if we look at the inquiry or the commission, Motabe Commission that was sent in 2018 to find out what happened with the shooting, nothing much real came out of that particular, inquiry. And we're talking about a situation where the government unleashed its army, to, people on the streets that were not happy because the results were not coming out. And the observer missions and everyone else was worried that the presidential election was taking much longer when the parliamentary election had actually been, released. So what we basically see happening in Zimbabwe is a situation where Zimbabwe has been let do things on its own, and the SADC, the AU, they have not come to the fore basically to condemn those actions which are undemocratic, those actions that stifle, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and the free will, of people to participate in elections. So we have a responsibility that is on the shoulders of, SADC in terms of PEM, the promotion of, free and fair elections, and SADC as well, and rather the AU. But all these organs and their responsibility seem to be more subservient, especially when it comes to Zimbabwe, where it can easily, just do as it pleases, and no one is held to account even when people are killed, by the government. So at this particular stage, it is true that the people of Zimbabwe are on their own because there is no government that seems to be there. At one stage it was, the Zambian government and the president who appeared to be at least, coming to the party, and the Botswana government, but they were just coming as individuals, and very little has come out of that.
Very quickly for us, please, Doc. When all is said and done, if you were given a chance, would you go home and vote?
Of course. Hope is the last, thing to desert any other person. That would be definitely, the position.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Dr. Vusi Sibanda, as the CEO of the Africa Diaspora Global Network.